Yo guys, what's going on? My name is HackingIsFreedom and welcome to the 20th episode of What Was Cut, a series where we take a look at what exactly was cut from our favorite games. Today, we're going to be talking about the SpongeBob movie game. I actually really enjoyed the SpongeBob game as a kid. I mean, it's obviously no Battle for Bikini Bottom, but since it used so much from that game, it pretty much felt like it to me. And I still rewatch the SpongeBob movie to this day because it's just so good and a big part of my childhood. Anywho, let's take the paddy wagon across the county line and figure out what was cut.
Out of the car, fellas.
As always, textures are up first, and there's surprisingly not a lot left over. These first three textures I believe are test color palettes. The PS2 version is differently colored than the Xbox version, but the GameCube version seems to reuse the Xbox's colors, just at a lower resolution. These two textures are labeled as UV Track 01 and UV Track 016. It's not really known where these were supposed to be used, but my guess is it may have been an earlier texture for the ramps while driving the paddy wagon, or these may have been used in one of the sliding sections, I'm not sure. Inside the texture sheet for the differently colored Patrick seen in the level Googly Eyes and Smelly Knickknacks is a completely unused green version. Here's what it looks like when you apply the green texture to one of the models. The same on flag that went unused in Battle for Bikini Bottom is also found in the files for this game. The texture sheet for the bathtub and Rub-a-Dub-Dub slip slide in the tub shows that there used to be a shower head attached to the tub at one point, probably to look more like SpongeBob's actual tub from the show, but for some reason this was changed to a faucet. This texture is just a leftover from Battle for Bikini Bottom, and it's the sign for the sea needle. Finally, we have a texture sheet with two unused particle effects, the first being a bit of a different version of the sparkle effect, and the other is a snowflake effect. The models are up next, and we don't have a lot left over, but the ones we do have I find pretty interesting. The first bunch of models we have are various test objects from a very early point in development, starting with this purple cylinder simply labeled as Temp Platform, and it's actually pretty similar to the rising and lowering platforms seen in the level I'm Ready Depression. This model was used for the round tables seen in the same level. We have an earlier collision model for the bulldozer seen in the level Sandwich Driving 101. We also have an earlier collision model for the lamppost featured in the Seashell Park section of the same level. There's a simple untextured sphere and a wall that's labeled as Temp Wall Horizontal 02 that's actually found in the data of No Cheese. These two models were found in the data of 3,000 miles to Shell City. And lastly, for the temp objects, we have an earlier model of the teleportation box. The stage or platform from the Sonic Wave guitar used the same model and textures as the pressure plate from Battle for Bikini Bottom. Found in the data of multiple levels are several pieces of an early Bucketotron model. It's actually possible to reconstruct this model, and this is what it looks like. It strongly resembles the Bucketotron seen in the concept art, and its size is much closer to the duplicator machine from Battle for Bikini Bottom. Finally, we have the Cruise Bubble model left over from Battle for Bikini Bottom. However, this was most likely used as a placeholder for the Sonic Wave guitar, as those two abilities are basically the exact same. We're now going to go over the cut and changes done to various levels. Let's go over the changes first, as a lot of these I find quite interesting. Starting with the first level, No Cheese. At the beginning, just after the slide section, there were originally 3 buttons you needed to press instead of just one, and there was a floating platform in place of where the rising platform is now. Later in the level, just before you get to the Krusty Krab, you can see a whole bunch of changes. For starters, the skybox was originally a daytime version, the falling platform didn't seem to exist yet, the lighting in general was really basic, the springboard was originally facing the wrong way, and it seems like there were a lot more pedestrians scattered around in the early version. The final game cut back on the pedestrians, but added these 2 police cars closer to the police tape. At the end of the level while jumping to the Krusty Krab, you can spot a few more differences. Like the lack of vehicles, Mr. Krabs is missing, all shadows are missing, and it also seems like the Goofy Goober coins weren't made yet, as this glowing silhouette really looks like a Krabby Patty pickup. Next up is I'm Ready Depression, and there's just some minor changes done here. Like the strings for the ice cream lights were missing, all pictures and decorations on the walls weren't made yet, just to the left of Patrick, the floor seemed to be missing part of its textures, and there were originally 3 plankton boxes to the right corner of the room. The final game replaced these with generic smashable barrels. Sandwich Driving 101 is next, and it seemed to be pretty unfinished in the beta stages. The fountain originally used this very basic placeholder model. The skybox was a weird orange color with no clouds or anything. You can spot a temp texture being used on the bulldozer. It looks like none of the decorative objects like the fire hydrants, streetlights, or coral bushes were made yet. I'm pretty sure this exact building type isn't seen in the final game. These 2 yellow boxes seem to be placeholders for the various obstacles. You can just barely make out some sort of power-up texture on the road, which I'm pretty sure is an earlier version of the boost pickup for the paddy wagon. Lastly, you can spot another object using a temp texture. I think it's a crane. Rub-a-Dub-Dub slip slide in the tub wasn't changed all that much. However, there's still some things to note. Like here, you can see the shower head on the bathtub I was talking about earlier. The skybox used the normal daytime one instead of the desert-themed one. You can see a strange blue and green block that was probably used for some sort of placeholder. And just above that, you can see that the targets used to use a picture of plankton on them, while the final game just uses the standard bullseye. Bubble Blowing Baby Hunt was also in a pretty early state when it was shown off. To start with, the bar had a weird pink checkered design, or it could have just been untextured. All destructible objects were completely missing, the tables and stools had a complete design change, all of the extra details like the life preservers, ropes, buoys, and pipes were missing, the button was moved over slightly, and in the early version there was this strange opening to the left featuring some sort of blue object or button. I wonder what the developers' ideas were with that. The level Now That We're Men sadly doesn't have any early gameplay screenshots, just some concept art, but it still gives us an insight to the early level design. According to the concept art, Mindy was supposed to appear in person rather than in the clamshell. It seems they still wanted to use the tikis from Battle for Bikini Bottom, as you can spot 3 of them on the left side. The overall lighting of the map was much brighter, and way in the back you can spot some sort of untextured creature that I believe is an earlier version of the popper due to the similar shape and also appearing in this level. Last up for the changes, we have Sunday driving, and quite a lot was changed in this level. Like the Goofy Goober statue was low poly and not fully textured. He used to be wearing his hat rather than holding his hat, and his lollipop was a lot bigger. The fountain itself also seems to have basic texturing and no water effects yet. Pretty much every single texture used for the geometry is in low quality, like the road, the mountains, the steel building, the sand mountain, and this wafer looking mountain. A lot of the level seems to be lacking shading. The candy cane textured railings originally looked like piano keys. The sundae or milkshake buildings were originally giant ice slushy cups, which is just awesome. All the smashables on the road were missing. All decorations like rocks, bushes, trees, and flowers were missing as well. The Ferris wheel was missing. There's a weird ice cream cone statue using a temp texture that I believe is an earlier version of those rolling ice cream hazards. And same with this fence, it also seems to be using a temp texture. Time for the fully cut levels, but sadly, there's only 2 of them. This first one doesn't have a proper name because you were never meant to access it. Basically, the 100% complete cutscene is housed in this level, and if you disable the cutscene, the game obviously fails to load it, which then puts you in control of SpongeBob. It's a pretty cool little level, and the most interesting thing about it is this area is pretty much an exact copy of the same area from Battle for Bikini Bottom. Also, I'm sure you noticed something weird in the background. Those are just where the images for the cutscene are stored, nothing too crazy. Oddly though, the Krusty Krab's interior remains fully modeled in this area, and it still actually contains some of the cutscene props as well. The final cut level only has some leftover text referencing it. It's called Goober Dream. As you can see by the text, it was going to feature both SpongeBob and Patrick, and if we go by what's shown here, it was supposed to be the 6th level, where Bubble Blowing Baby Hunt is now. Onto the sounds and voice lines, and I just want to say there's a lot of voice lines that were cut from Mindy, but sadly they're all voice lines of her explaining the various tutorial tips. All of these are still used in game, but they're just done with text and clam sound effects, rather than Mindy voicing them. So I just decided to leave all of these out of this video, as I personally don't find them that interesting. Anywho, sound effects are up first, as there's not that many to go through. This first one was most likely a placeholder for Patrick's spin attack, but strangely, it sounds exactly like the belly bash from Battle for Bikini Bottom. This next one was found in the data of the level No Weenie Parking Anytime, and it's just a simple failure sound. By its file name and the fact that it's found among other Patty Wagon files, this sound suggests that it was supposed to play when picking up a Krabby Patty while in one of the driving levels. These next 2 sounds were supposed to be heard during the King Neptune boss fight. I'm guessing this first one was supposed to be heard when King Neptune hits you. And this one was most likely supposed to be heard when you hit King Neptune. This strange short disco loop was most likely meant for the disco room in the Thug Tug. The last sound effect is a strange one, but a quick one. It's simply labeled as Menu Start, and I'm guessing this is a placeholder for when you press start on the game's title screen, at a really early stage in development. Okay, onto the voice lines, and there's quite a lot of them, but I did shave it down a bit to show some off without this part being too long. I'm just going to let these play with some text for each one at the bottom of the screen, as it would take way too long to go through these with me interrupting every 5 seconds. The only thing I will do is announce which character is going to be played next. Anywho, we're starting off with old Spongy first.
Well, would you looky there? Stop hogging the monster, Patrick. Oh, come on, that was just getting fun. Behind every great move, there's a great animator, especially when said animator's name is Gregory Eklund. Oh yeah, that is not comfortable. Buttons, buttons, so many buttons. What would Patrick do here? Patrick and SpongeBob 4, Sea Monsters 0. I hope Mr. Krabs wasn't too cheap to get insurance. Hang on, we're coming. Paddy Wagon coming through. Did we just hit something? 2 for the price of 1. This is, well, humiliating. Maybe you better check the map, Patrick. Patrick, that's the gear shift. Goofy, goofy, goober, goober, yeah!
Next up is Patrick Star.
Ah! Too many buttons! That'll learn 'em. Aim for the eye, SpongeBob! I suddenly feel hungry. Roger that, rubber duck. Belly bounce! I can do these. Well, some of them anyway. Woohoo! Ride that calamari! Patrick, break! Keep 'em coming. So manly. Down for the count! Ice cream headache! Cannonball! Bottoms up!
Next, we have two for SpongeBob and Patrick together, and this is the only one that might need some explanation. So these two clips were found in the data of the rock slide level, but I'm pretty sure they could have been heard in any level. For these two voice lines to play, you would have needed to fall an extremely large distance, and since no such falls exist in the game, these go completely unused.
Remember, don't look down.
Too late. Ah! Are we there yet?
No.
Are we there yet?
No.
Are we ever gonna be there?
No!
Mindy is up next.
I call this guy Flinger. He throws missiles at you from far away. You can push the boulder to roll it in any direction. Be careful. Steam vents can push the boulder if it gets too close. What a weird place. See if you can make it across those blocks to the other side. It's a timed race. Race back to the beginning as fast as you can. This buckethead is called Merv. Watch out for his missiles. You did it! You still haven't found all the Goofy Goober tokens in Planktopolis. Keep looking.
Can do, Mindy.
You found all the Goofy Goober tokens. Congratulations.
Nothing to it.
We have a few for Mr. Krabs.
Controls for this here piece of entertainment. A list of all of the seaworthy moves that SpongeBob and his pink friend have. Oh, what?
We have a single line from Plankton that was supposed to be heard when he loses control of King Neptune, but in the final game, a female scream is heard instead.
Uh-oh.
And finally, we have a single line from a character labeled as Yokel, and some unused subtitle data implies that this voice line was intended to be heard after destroying the final tower in the level 3,000 miles to Shell City.
That ain't funny.
As we come to the end of the video, it's time for the oddities I found throughout the game. The first set of oddities I have for you are a bunch of random, misplaced, or unused objects on their various maps. Starting with No Cheese, which has some misplaced coral and a piece of seaweed. But something much more interesting is this strange brown block, which is actually located near the rising and lowering platform, so it may have something to do with that. Other than that though, I have no idea what this could be used for. In Sandwich Driving 101, there's 3 objects all mashed together located at the center point of the map, which is at coordinate 000. The first one seems to be a smaller sized building asset, the second one is a standard flower, and the third seems to be basic collision mesh for a tree. The level Now That We're Men has some interesting ones, like these first objects near the swinging starfish and frozen lava desert challenges. We can assume that these 2 areas required you to use Patrick's throw ability before you could access them. At the start of every tentacle encounter, there's a SpongeBob block that spawns in, and it's tied to the coding for each tentacle encounter itself. Another SpongeBob block can be found near the lobster mini-boss, and it pretty much serves as a buffer for the boss's health. Each time you attack the boss, the block will move down for 2 seconds and then update the boss's health. This pretty much acts as an anti-spammer, so you can't just continuously attack him. Lastly, there's some misplaced rock assets near the bounce pad. The only strange thing found in the level Shell City Dead Ahead is the fact that all of the destructibles for the entire level are all bunched up on a single coordinate near the very beginning of the level. Finally, in the level Drive of the Knucklehead McSpazatron, at the very end of the level, there's an invisible SpongeBob NPC placed just before the big jump, and he seems to be tied to the ending animation. In this level specifically, once you complete the main challenge, you're not teleported back to Minnie for the reward. So without this NPC, the game would freeze and you would never be able to continue. Only in the French and Netherlands copy of the GameCube version, the crab monster was completely removed from the level Rock Slide. Like even the textures in the game files have been removed. Kinda strange. In the level 3,000 miles to Shell City, you can get out of bounds very easy in this section. Simply turn around and jump into this corner. Follow this path so you don't fall through the map, and bam! You can pretty much go anywhere you want, but if you keep going towards the gas station, you'll find a pretty cool looking skybox glitch. Also, later in the same level, there's another easy out of bounds trick. Once you come to this section, you'll notice a gap in the geometry. Simply fall down, hold forward, and then use the spin move. You should land just on the outside of the water, but sadly, you can't really go anywhere here using this glitch, but I still thought it was cool. In any level that has a teleporting box, you can do an easy God mode glitch. Make sure that you don't have the other side of the box open. Jump in the box and reload the level. You'll now have God mode, and every enemy that's not a jellyfish won't even target you. However, you can only use the Sonic Wave Katara attack since no other attacks will work while in this state. In the level No Cheese, you can very easily disable the scripted scene where the truck bashes through the boxes. Pretty much as soon as you see the truck on screen, immediately press the start button and reload the level. That scripted scene is now permanently disabled, but the collision for the truck and its platforms do still exist, so it doesn't break the level or anything. This platform from the Now That We're Men floating block challenge has an unused script attached to it labeled as Beacon Script 01. It was originally meant to be highlighted like this during the skydive. Speaking of skydive, did you know each bungee challenge has a unique secret timer counting down in the background? The bungee in 3,000 Miles to Shell City has a timer of 120 seconds, Now That We're Men has a timer of 100 seconds, and the bungee challenge in Welcome to Planktopolis has a timer of only 60 seconds. In the level Dennis Strikes Back, if you go to the end of Hasselhoff's right leg near the Krabby Patty and simply jump off, you'll for some reason just fall right through the map and eventually land on the level's floor. Walking much further away down here reveals that the level is actually cone-shaped at the bottom. Even stranger, this glitch can only be done on the PS2 version. There's some interesting text left over in each version of the game's executable. These two can be found in all console versions, and the final text can only be found in the PS2 version. 2 costumes from the also cut Goober Dream level were planned, but they obviously got scrapped once the level got scrapped as well. Patrick's can still be worn with a cheat code, but SpongeBob's for some reason doesn't work at all. In the level No Cheese, you can get out of the map very easily. Just before the wall jump section, jump onto this coral tree and try and aim for this spot here. It can be a bit finicky, but once you get it, SpongeBob should pull himself up, and now you're free to roam around and explore. In the King Neptune fight, you can simply jump onto some debris behind Mr. Krabs to pretty much skip the first and second waves of his attacks. In Sandwich Driving 101, there's an arrow that's smaller than the rest. It seems the developer just forgot to resize the model. In the level Welcome to Planktopolis, you can get out of bounds very easily with SpongeBob or Patrick. For SpongeBob, jump onto the character changer and head to the right. Jump and aim for this middle section here, in between these 2 spikes, and SpongeBob should pull himself up. And it's as easy as that. It's even easier for Patrick. Jump on the character changer and simply aim for this section near the pillar. He should pull himself up just like SpongeBob, and you're done. Finally, it's not really an oddity, but rather something pretty cool. The animated PS2 save icon's textures are literally copied from Battle for Bikini Bottom, as this is the texture for the icon. You can see the texture for the military helmet in the top right corner, but it's just not mapped to the model. And that's all I have for the SpongeBob SquarePants Movie game. It was real fun playing this again after so many years, and I hope I showed you something you didn't know. I find it quite interesting that this game and Battle for Bikini Bottom almost have the exact same speedrun strategies. Which kinda makes sense though, I mean these 2 games are pretty much identical. This video also should have been out a few days earlier, but all of my sound was completely unusable. I mean, like, just listen to how this sounded.
Yo guys, what's going on? My name is HackingIsFreedom and welcome to the 20th episode of What Was Cut, a series where we take a look at what exactly was cut from our favorite games. Today, we're going to be talking about the SpongeBob movie game.
I honestly have no idea what happened or even how that happened. I mean, I guess I just chose a wrong setting or possibly the wrong microphone. I just really wish I knew that before I recorded my entire script. Anywho, if you have a suggestion for the next What Was Cut episode, please feel free to comment down below. With that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.